The CEO is gone. The COO is gone. The head of audit is gone. And the partners, the people who spent decades climbing one of the greatest career ladders on the planet, they are frantically calling recruiters and lawyers and calling anyone who will pick up. This is KPMG Australia, May 2026. And I need to talk about it because this isn't just about the Big Four story. This is a leadership story, and it is playing out in organizations everywhere, usually without the AFR headline. And welcome back. I'm Sonia, and this is Leadership with Sonia. And today we're going to go deep on one of the most spectacular organizational collapses we've seen in Australia in years. And I'm going to give you 5 leadership lessons that you should take straight back to your team, your business, and your organization. These are not theoretical, these are real, and these are urgent. So let's go. And let me paint a picture for you. It's 2026, and one of the most prestigious professional services firms on the planet is in free fall. Staff are describing the internal mood in one word: chaos. People are showing up not knowing if their firm will exist in its current form by the end of the quarter. Clients are spooked, including the federal government, which was forced to apologise. And mid-hearing, during a federal parliamentary committee, ASIC, confirmed in real time that they had been investigating since April. You could not write this, but here is the detail that stops me cold every single time. The whistleblower who triggered all of this, he formally raised his concerns in May 2024, 2 years ago. 2 years of opportunities to get ahead of this. Two years of chances to investigate properly, act with integrity, do the right thing. And instead, here we are, a firm in crisis, a leadership team in ruins, clients questioning who they can trust, and an entire industry asking questions it should have been asking a long time ago. Okay, so let's talk about tips. Tip 1, culture is set at the top, and so is corruption. Here's the allegation at the heart of this. KPMG, their partners reportedly use confidential client information, board papers obtained through their work with Lendlease, to pitch for and win external audits at Westpac, Dexus, and Macquarie Group. Inside information used as a competitive weapon. Where does that behavior come from? It doesn't happen because one rogue partner had a bad idea one afternoon. It happens when culture has quietly and it's just drifted. When winning has become more important than how you win, when performance is celebrated and questions are discouraged. Think about Enron, right? The partners and Arthur Andersen weren't all bad people, but they all operated in a culture where revenue came before integrity. And over time, that became the water they swam in. They stopped seeing it, and then it destroyed them. So think about Wells Fargo. Staff opening up fake accounts to hit sales targets, not because they were criminals, because the culture rewarded numbers and punished questions. And here's what I want you to do this week. Audit what you actually reward and what you actually tolerate, not what your value statement says. Okay? And ask your team, where do you feel pressure to cut corners? And then listen, actually listen without getting defensive. Leaders who catch culture drift early are the ones willing to hear uncomfortable things while there is still time to change them. And they are the ones brave enough to act on what they hear. Yeah. So tip number 2, Whistleblowers are not your problem. Ignoring them is. May 2024. A whistleblower formally raises his concerns, and we are now watching the entire senior leadership team of KPMG Australia implode. History is littered with organisations brought down not by original wrongdoing, but by what happened after someone spoke up. Boeing and the 737 MAX, engineers raised safety concerns that were minimised and dismissed. 346 people died in 2 crashes. The Post Office Horizon scandal, hundreds of innocent sub-postmasters prosecuted for software errors. The people who raised concerns, silenced, discredited, destroyed it. It took decades for the truth to come out. Whistleblowers are not threats to your organisation. They're the last line of defense before your organisation becomes a threat to itself. So ask yourself honestly, if someone in your organisation wanted to raise a concern today, would they trust the process? Would they feel safe? Would they believe it would actually go somewhere? If the answer is no, even maybe, that is your most urgent leadership problem. Full stop. Building a speak up culture takes time and intentional effort. Tip 3, in crisis, silence is petrol on fire. Staff at KPMG are furious about how leadership communicated, or rather it didn't. Insiders describe people finding out through media reports, sitting in client meetings having to pretend they knew what was going on when they absolutely did not. The absence of communication does not create calm. It creates the worst possible version of the truth. Because humans, when left without information, they'll always fill in the gap with fear and then rumor, and then they start calling recruiters. And United 2017, a passenger dragged off a plane. Video goes viral. CEO defended staff, called the passenger disruptive, tone deaf and defensive. Brand damage took years to recover. Compare that to Johnson & Johnson in 1982, 7 people dead from laced Tylenol. And the CEO, James Burke, immediately went public, pulled 31 million bottles off the shelves, right? Communicated openly throughout. Still the gold standard of crisis communication. They recovered market share within a year because people trusted them. Your people can handle uncertainty. What they can't handle is silence, followed by a resignation announcement. Get a crisis communication framework in place before you need it, and commit to this rule. Communicate before you're ready. We don't have to have all the answers yet, but here's what we know, and here's what we'll update you with. That is worth 10 polished statements that arrive in a week too late. The 4th tip, right? Accountability without culture change is just theatre. 3 senior leaders are out. CEO Andrew Yates, head of audit Julian McPherson, the COO Elaine Hoggett. That looks like accountability being served. But here's a question that never gets asked loud enough. What did we build that made that possible? Because if the incentive structure or the incentive structures haven't changed, if the culture that discouraged question hasn't shifted, if the people who knew and said nothing are still in their roles, those 3 resignations are a sacrifice, not a transformation. We saw this with the Australian Banking Royal Commission. The banks apologised, executives departed, fines were paid, and within a few years, multiple institutions were back under scrutiny for the same behaviours. The accountability, performative, not structural. The next time something goes wrong, resist the urge to find the culprit and move on. Ask, what did our system contribute to this? Build that question into every post-incident review. Treat every failure as data about your culture, not just a personnel problem to resolve. Read more about accountability and leadership at leadershiphq.com.au, because we do so much work in this space in our leadership programs and culture work. And tip 5, reputation is a leadership problem, not a marketing problem. KPMG is one of the big 4. A brand built over more than a century, trusted by boards, regulators, investors to provide independent, credible assurance. That brand, that trust, that entire product, that is the entire product, because without it, there is nothing to sell. Arthur Andersen, nearly century old, 85,000 employees, gone in months after Enron, because the behavior of a few entitled the silence of many, destroyed the one thing that they could not survive without his trust. PwC and the tax leak scandal, a partner sharing confidential government information with clients. Their entire public sector arm sold for $1. Reputation management starts with reputation building. And that happens every day, in everyday moments, not just in the crisis one, right? The crisis one. The conversation where someone tells the truth when it should have been easier to stay quiet, in the decision to do the right thing when no one is watching, okay? So do an honest review of your decisions being made in your organization that you'd be uncomfortable defending publicly, not the big strategic ones, the small daily ones, the client being oversold, the staff member whose concerns are dismissed, the partner bending rules because they always have. Your reputation is a sum of these moments. It is. And so is your culture. Build it deliberately or watch it erode quietly. So let me bring it home. KPMG didn't fail because of one bad decision. It failed because of a culture that allowed bad decisions to accumulate, a whistleblower who raised his hand and wasn't heard, and a communication failure that left its own people in shock. The leaders who build organizations worth working in and worth trusting are the ones who ask the hard questions before they become headlines, who protect the people who speak up, who communicate even when it's uncomfortable, who understand that accountability means looking at the system, not just the individual. So this week, ask yourself the question that KPMG's leadership apparently didn't. What does someone in my organization already know, and are they safe enough to tell me? Because sometimes they blow the whistle. I'm Sonia, and thank you for being here and listening and watching this. If this landed for you, go to leadershiphq.com.au, check out our award-winning blogs and insights. And next week, we are going to be talking about those leaders who make you miserable and how to work with them. Thank you for listening to Leadership with Sonia. And please reach out anytime if there's anything we can do to serve you. Stay kind and stay courageous. Thank you.